Lost kids on the way to the district office. Okay. My documents just went away. All right, we want to officially begin this meeting and call it to order. Today is Tuesday, January 10th, 2023. We're going to start by introducing who's here. Let's start with you, Clark.
Clark Nelson.
Chris Wynn.
Nicole McDermott.
Connie Burgess.
Kim Chandler.
Julie Jackson.
Todd Hauber. Rich Nye.
And Karen Winder. Welcome. It's so fun in this particular board meeting to see a lot of friendly faces out there of our newly elected board members and their support behind them. So welcome everybody, as well as those listening online. We're going to begin. The first item of very much importance is the swearing in of our board members. And so we're going to go in precinct order, and the precincts that were up for election last year were 3, 5, 6, and 7, which is Connie Burgess, Kim Chandler, myself, Karen Winder, as well as Chris Nguyen. So we're going to go in that order. Todd Hauber, our business administrator, will be the one administering each oath of office. So we'll do this individually, starting with Connie. And then after Connie is sworn in, if you'll come back to the microphone and introduce who's here to support you.
That if you want to be able to read it, in case I read too fast.
All right, thanks. Good.
All right, so I state your name.
Connie Burgess,
Having been elected to the office of Granite School Board District 3,
having been elected to the office of Granite School Board District 3,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yes, I have my husband and two of my daughters, Beth and Ann. If you want to stand up or not. And Beth's husband, Roy. And then we have Brooklyn, and I have 9 grandchildren here. Brooklyn and Rebecca and Sam. And then in the back we have Tim, Rachel, and Elizabeth, Joaquin, and Frank, with the nanny, Carly, of which we're so grateful. Thank you so much for coming.
All right, Kim.
You can read that as we go.
Okay.
Raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Kim Chandler,
Having been elected to the office of Granite School Board District 5,
having been elected to the office of Granite School Board District 5,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Congratulations. Introduce your guests that are here.
I have my husband, Jeff, here, along with my 3 children, David, Michael, and Katie, who are all in Gerald Wright Elementary right now. So you guys stand up?
I was just noticing that.
So I state your name,
I, Karen Hermanson Winder,
having been elected to the office of Granite School Board District 6,
having been elected to the office of Granite School Board District Number 6,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Congratulations. Introduce the guest.
Yep. All right, so with me this evening, I have my biggest support, my husband, Mike. Mike Winder is here. He's been my rock, my campaign manager, and everything, so I really appreciate him. And I've got my two youngest kids. I have John and Grace with me tonight. Grace is a freshman at Granger High. And I've got a son who also supports me, and he is a junior at SUU, and so he is supporting me from Cedar City. And then my oldest is pursuing a master's at the University of Utah and had classes. And I know she and her husband, my son-in-law, send their support as well. And then I have my awesome sister-in-law, Amy Winder Newton, in the house. And she's been a great support to me, you know, my entire time being part of the Winder family, but also especially through campaign season. So thanks for your support.
So if you'll raise your right hand. I state your name,
I, Christina Wynn,
having been elected to the office of Granite School Board District 7,
having been elected to the office of Granite School Board District 7,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Congratulations. Introduce your guests.
Okay. I have my husband here with me tonight, Long, if you'll stand up. My son, Alec, his wife, Hannah, my grandchildren, Grayson, Harper, and Evelyn, my niece, Miranda, my mom, Annabeth, and my campaign manager, Amy. And they're wonderful, and thank you for your support.
All right, if I could have Connie, Kim, Karen, and Chris. We decided to win the race, you had to have a K sound. We are all C's or K's. Can we just come right here for a quick picture, the 4 new board members, or new terms?
All right, over here. 1, 2, 3.
Did we all get them? Oh. Why didn't you tell me? They were coming this way. It's okay. All right, thank you for all the support. I think,
Can I just mention
Absolutely.
my son and daughter-in-law with Jane and Everett just came in.
awesome. And my mom's on the way here, but I don't know exactly where she is. But I'll welcome her when she gets here. Congratulations to these newly elected board members. I don't know, for those who have never run a campaign, campaigns are a lot of work and they're a very high stress time. And it takes a lot of resources, and the biggest resource you have outside of money is people. The people that are kind of your soft place to fall throughout the campaign trail. And so to everybody here supporting their loved ones who ran and were successful in their seeking their office, just know how much we all appreciate you as candidates and loved ones. So with that, we're going to continue on with our agenda. You are definitely welcome to stay. We have some exciting construction and capital updates that we're going to get talking about, as well as a fascinating budget audit review. So you are very welcome to stay, but if you want to slip out, we're not going to judge. So with that, we want to give our thanks one last time for your support of us up here on the dais, and we'll turn the time over to Dawn and Justin, who are going to proceed to give us our update on our capital projects.
Okay, would you please jump to the next one, or the first one? So, security projects, I think is the first one up there. And I believe that in your packet tonight, there's two construction contracts or awards that we want to take care of. That's for Woodstock and Oakwood. And we were excited because those came in a little bit lower than our budget had estimated. So that's always great news. And it's a contractor that we've had a lot of good luck with and a lot of good experiences with. So we're excited about getting those. Those will get going here once it's approved. Those will get going the 1st of April, and we'll work through until August 1st and have those ready to go for the new year. So we're excited about those. And then the last four that are on there are ones that we will be getting, are in design, Valley Crest, Western Hills, Silver Hills, and West Kearns. So those are the last four elementary schools. I think I mentioned the Woodstock and Oakwood slide. Sorry, I jumped ahead a little bit, but those are to begin here the 1st of April and run through August to August 1st. William Penn is essentially done. There's just a few remaining punch list items, and our principal, Nicole, is into her new office, and so just getting a few things ironed out, but it's exciting that we're basically done at William Penn, which is encouraging.
Fremont Elementary, if you recall, we had to expand the scope of work on this through a change order last board meeting. That's because we encountered additional structural damage to the footing and foundation package. They're working on this now as we speak. They've, in essence, been able to do the selective demolition to remove any of that damaged material, the concrete, and also the rebar that was damaged as part of exposure over the many decades. I believe this was an early 1960s school, so it's older than I am. I won't reveal my age, just understand it's older than I am. And so the contractor's working through all of that. The initial scope of work for the pillars is substantially complete. The next, working towards Magna Elementary School, we're getting very close to finishing up the controls and the new valves that are part of the HVAC control replacement and, in essence, ESSER project. We've seen substantial improvement to the majority of the school for temperature control, less deviation, less hot-cold rooms, moving through that older school, and two types of heating systems, a steam system and what we call hydronic. That's basically hot water. And so we're blending the Frankenstein monster nicely between the older and newer sections, making substantial progress, and we expect to finish what I'll call the larger physical improvements and start working on those control components and the computer programming and running different test cycles at Magna, moving along nicely. Again, you can see some of the new valves and actuators in the rooms, the older system controlled by compressed air, things not working perfectly with the older air handlers, et cetera. So they've been resolving those control issues nicely over the past, I think we've been on the project now for about 5 active months. Hunter Elementary School, if you recall, this was a boiler replacement. We're just working on the commissioning of the system. The installation is in with the high-efficiency boilers. Remember, we happen to have a rusting breakthrough on the older style, and so we undertook this repair, making sure that we get the right combustion air to get the most efficient use out of the project as well. And so this is a great heating upgrade for Hunter, and it's wrapping itself up smoothly. Hunter High School, again, this is another ESSER project. We're about 80% complete in a very large building. My recollection is from discussions, we had about 360 valves, I think, were mentioned on a Monday construction meeting that we've gone through and replaced. And so we'll be able to get the heating and cooling away from, again, that old compressed air system into a modern electronically controlled system. So it'll improve both heating and cooling in the seasons. Contractor working diligently after hours, keeping the school as best acclimatized as possible. We haven't had complaints yet. So at 80%, we're feeling pretty good about the process at Hunter.
Jumping into the new construction with Skyline, we are in the process of finishing up a few items in the athletic building, as well as moved on to the academic building. You'll see those in the slides in just a few moments. We're working on the batting cages in the wrestling room, tennis court. The remaining concrete around the edges has been poured, covering the tension cables. The softball building has drywall being hung in it, so that should be ready to go for this spring season. The pathway should be open up here this month. Demolition, you'll see some pictures of the demolition and separation of the gymnasium and from the auditorium. Continued tilt panel, standing of those panels, and then some trusses going in, and we'll look at those. Here's a kind of a fun slide looking down kind of to the east of them picking carefully, tearing the old gym down up to the auditorium, and being very careful in the process, and the debris below there. So it's kind of an interesting photo there. Down on our pathways, we're heading north. There's if you will, a call box down there that's buried in snow, if you can see, but kind of a fun slide there. Here are those trusses we talked about going in. This is the testing center of the new academic building, and that's coming along. Just kind of an overview there, you can kind of see to the north. I mentioned this last month that we would show you a slide. It's a little tougher this one because everything's blanketed in white, so it all blends together and it doesn't really give you the separation. But the green spaces and the fields are up north with softball, working from left to right, soccer, lacrosse field there. Then you got the tennis courts, the field and football field and track, and baseball with a new athletic complex right there. And then the part that says academics building, that's what's being built right now. The existing auditorium, you can see a chunk's been taken out of it. That's being demoed up to the auditorium. And then, of course, the existing A building or academics building stays until the summer of '24. So that's kind of an overview of the tightly school's campus up at Skyline. Any questions? As far as finances, there wasn't any change orders that came to the board this month on Skyline developments there.
Okay, Cypress High School, again, making good pace as best we can. Justin pointed to the prior picture with that light, wonderful, fluffy, water-laden snow that has caused some challenges at both projects. Winter conditions have not really been present in a couple of years, but thank goodness they're present this year, and let's hope for full reservoirs from that. But it does slow us down. So we have been making a lot of progress on steel, bridging the tilt panels. If you remember last month at Cypress, we celebrated 50% of the panels up, so we're getting additional, but we follow that quickly with the steel so things don't fall over. The gymnasium steel decking is done. We're pouring concrete on the upper deck running track, and we're prepping the gym for its final concrete floor, which will then get its wood overlay on it, and working through the cardio, wrestling rooms, and et cetera. And so if you remember, we're really kind of working Cypress, and you'll see it in the aerial photographs, starting at the bookends, the auditorium on the eastern side, the gymnasium on the western side, and we will meet in the middle as we continue through. So again, now you're starting to see that auditorium roof decking, and then you'll start to see in pictures the evolution of the catwalk that allows for students to work on performances and work with our lighting and things of that nature. And if you recall, the highest point of the building is in the auditorium where we're 70 some odd feet tall in the upper fly section. That's our largest single span. We're starting to get window frames in. That will help us weather in the building, make the interior finish more predictable and safer and frankly warmer. So we're starting to get those metal frames coming in. Starting to rough in the cardio room, so you're starting to see actual framing come in before the drywall walls, insulation, and other internal finishes come in. Gymnasium stairs are starting to evolve themselves. Until now, it's pretty much been you're up and down a ladder if you wanted to visit and get anywhere. And so big efficiencies and safety once these finish out, and the ability to get products up and down a little easier. Again, you'll remember that there was, in prior pictures, a casting bed. Again, that rough concrete slab that we were pouring the tilt panels on and then standing them up, that's been removed. And now the deeper, thicker, and better finished gym floor concrete is being prepared. There was a change order in your packet. This was related to a review by the State Fire Marshal as an outside agency. This is us catching up on paperwork. That review occurred several months ago and is part of a submittal package where the State Fire Marshal decided they wanted to see additional pieces of safety equipment included above and beyond what we had thought as we did code review. It's not uncommon for State Fire Marshal to come back with modifications to the amount of sensors they want to see, how they want the alarm to function, and of course how they want the inside fire sprinkler system to function as well. So there was an roughly $80,000 change order reflected based upon our need to comply with the State Fire Marshal. Are there any questions related to Cypress?
Can I just ask a question?
Yes, ma'am,
Relative
please.
to that. So with that change order with Cypress, did that also happen, or are we seeing this happen at Skyline and Westlake? Are we anticipating that, or are we just waiting till
Skyline hit first, and so that was approved by the board in prior meetings. This is us catching up to the paperwork on Cypress. It is similar in scope, but yet again, it was after we let the contract out that the State Fire Marshal went through and said, let's make some changes. You even saw the State Fire Marshal, as we were doing the punch list walk for Skyline, make some changes to their fire system up there as well, what they would deem acceptable and not. It's just a process that, unfortunately, it comes after the fact, but it's not uncommon as a State Fire Marshal walks and reviews buildings and becomes more familiar. They want to make sure that it meets their safety standards. So we did see it at Skyline. It's now being reflected in paperwork with Cypress.
And I don't think we'll see it at Westlake. I think we're okay there. Cross our fingers.
we'll see.
I'm not so brave as to say that, so I do have my fingers crossed. So Westlake STEM, as you're driving by, you're seeing good progress there. You've seen the block work of the gymnasium there for a while. We're getting roof trusses in. We're continuing the block work towards what we call the back of house, where the boilers and mechanical systems are, and as we start to interface with the cafeteria. Locker room walls have been up. Kitchen and mechanical, they're going nicely. You have seen the metal frame in what we'll call the academic section of the wing, primarily on the south. Again, we're starting at bookends and meeting in the middle. We had a very productive walk in the academics as we met with folks from information systems, educational technology, et cetera, making sure they felt comfortable where we're roughing in all of the electrical panels and other things that support the teaching technology. And so this is the time to do it. You can move it now at no cost, and so we identified a couple of things that we're going to move. And again, great walkthrough in the building as you're starting to see all of the mechanical ductwork show up, the walls start to frame themselves in, running all the conduit for high voltage electricity and technology support. Working well with the contractor on that. Again, the block work coming up for the kitchen and mechanical rooms. The gymnasium steel roofing is in place, so we'll start to see things get weathered in and changes occur into the interior. Very cold in those shadowed spaces right now. A lot of folks think, oh, great, the roof's on, you can get going. It's much, much colder until you get all of the exterior sealed up as you're working in there, and as we like to say, almost ice skating as we do our inspections. Commons area, this is in the main hallway leading up. Through the plastic sheeting, you'd be seeing the teacher collaboration hub, and up the stairway as you look at those construction workers, that's the library deck. So we're starting to see that good community space come together nicely at Westlake. And again, you are seeing a good reflection of the amount of snow that we're working with that's melted off. After snow becomes mud, so it's a little bit of slip sliding and fun, but they're working through the weather nicely and making good solid process on Westlake. No change orders coming through Westlake at this point in time, so Westlake's proceeding smoothly. Any questions?
Pretty straightforward. Thanks, guys.
Yeah,
We're
thank you.
excited to see, even though with delays, we're excited to see that the work still continues.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Make hay while the sun shines is an old
Yeah,
family.
exactly. But please pass our thanks on to all your crew.
Will do. Thank you.
We appreciate it. All right, Matt, where's Matt?
Oh, I can give a rousing
All right.
report if you
Well, we're going to turn the time over then to our new business administrator. Todd Haber is going to come and lead us through a little bit of the audit report and some very exhilarating financial talk. Right, Todd?
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
You don't look very much, you do.
I was looking for Matt. I'm like, I know everybody is.
It's good to be with you today. I'm having a flashback to a couple months ago.
For those who don't
you have a
know, when
question
we
for me?
interviewed for a business administrator, the candidates sat right there and answered our questions, and so you probably are.
So I'm going to do
yeah.
this.
Probably is a little weird there.
So I received a text from Matt. He's having car challenges, so he said he'd get here about 5:30. So I'll go through my part. If he arrives, awesome. If not, I'll go through the report that he had prepared. So on your seats there, you have a hard copy of the annual comprehensive financial report. It's also available online. So if you don't want a hard copy, you can leave it there. I'll pick it up. And it's out on the accounting department's website. You'll see the financial statements there. So that's available to you. Also want to recognize Chris Lewis and his staff for the awesome work they did in putting this report together. They spent many hours putting a very professional document together that has the financial information and wherewithal of the district to be able to provide education to our students. But on top of that, they're also integral to the process day in, day out to make sure that we're putting our accounting efforts together and our the bean counting, keeping track of everything, so that when the auditors come, we're able to come through with Matt's here.
Yep, Matt, do you want to come and join? Is that Matt? Oh, not Matt. Oh, sorry, we're waiting for a Matt, and I don't know what Matt looks like, so my apologies.
I'll keep my phone close. I'm sure.
Oh,
they'll
it's
text me.
Quinn. Quinn Cotter, representative. Welcome.
But their efforts through the year make it so that we can have a clean audit when we get to the end of the day. So again, I want to recognize their efforts and time and talents that they bring forward. So Superintendent said if Matt didn't make it, I should go on page 1 and walk you through every page till Matt gets here. No, we won't do that. So, but I will take you to a couple of sections I want you to look at or at least listen to. So there are 2 presentations in our financial document. One is on a government-wide basis. This is where we use full accrual accounting to capture the financial activity of the district. And that starts on page 19. And we will not read that together. I'm just giving you some bookmarks. So page 19 is the beginning of that discussion. And then we also do fund accounting. So we speak to the different funds of the district, whether it's the capital fund or the general fund or the student services funds, et cetera. Those begin on page 23. So in that section of the financials, that's where you can get the overview and the significant changes that have happened this year. If you want to plow through and get all the way to page 129, go for it. We'd be very happy to hear that someone made it through all the pages, but we're realistic. And so that management discussion and analysis section is really for you guys so that you can understand at that higher level. Of those items that are there, I'd like to call your attention just to a few things so that you understand what resources are available to the district as we move forward, what's available this year as we close out the 23 school year, and what may be available to us as we go into 24.
Are you Matt? Matt, welcome.
All right.
All right, Matt's here to join you, Todd. Ben, could we pull up a chair for this young man so he has a spot? Oh, or do you just want to sit there? Oh, he doesn't care.
Sorry.
There's a more important event tonight that they want to get to, so. So I'll just talk through a couple of things, and I'll turn the time over to Matt to speak to the actual audit report itself. So in this year, we had a significant change in what we reported. There's on a regular basis, the governing bodies that decide how financial statements are reported and put together have statements with different expectations of how we report information. And for this particular year, there was a statement called GASB 87, which has to do with leases. And so we carry in our financials some information that you wouldn't otherwise have seen called out specifically. So we recognized about $377,000 in long-term liabilities due to leases. And then we also recognized $184,000 in receivables associated with the leases that we have for like the cell towers. So there's some additional information that you've not seen broken out specifically, but now you can see that information in the financial statements. We have about $40.5 million in our fund balances to cover our responsibilities for retirement and the OPEBs that we carry. So those programs are fully funded. So that's a good position to be in. The state legislature frowns on carrying those types of benefits for employees that are not fully funded. So we're in a good financial situation that way. We're also able to set aside an additional $2.7 million to our economic stabilization reserve, which is set in statute to be about 5% of your operating expenses. So we're able to fully fund that reserve as well. So those funds are available to you as we move forward. Those types of things being fully funded are what rating agencies will look at when they assess what our underlying rating is. With the state, we have a state guarantee program, so the state is funded or rated at a AAA standard, but they also look at the underlying rating of the districts in its own operations. And we're in a situation where we're at that AAA level, and it's because of these types of reserves. Chris?
I just have a question. Is that the reserve we used when we built Wasatch or West Lake? Like we had that emergency fund that we could use for rebuilding? Is this part of that?
That's not.
That's not.
So that's separate, yeah. So
that's
this,
a different emergency
yeah,
fund.
So
Okay.
this is on our general fund side, and in our internal service funds is where these dollars are. So in addition, we do have about 42, as of June 30th, 2022, we had a remaining amount of bond project revenues of $42 million. So those are for those capital projects. We also received some insurance monies for the Westlake School, and then we're also still waiting to hear from FEMA as to whether our application will be approved, and that will provide hopefully additional dollars that would be replenishing those reserves you're speaking to be available for further capital projects. So there's just some highlights that you'll see in there. Again, it's in those pages I highlighted. And I'll turn some time over to Matt to talk about the audit. Good to see you.
Thank you, and I apologize for being late, but my son, we're going to the Jazz game tonight, and the tickets were on my cell phone, and my cell phone was at home, so I had to turn around quickly. So I appreciate the forgiveness. because he wouldn't have forgiven me.
You got your priorities right, so
I appreciate
good job.
that. I appreciate it. We provide several services to the district, generally under this giant umbrella of the audit. First, we audit the financial statements, which Todd has been talking to you about certain components of the financial statements. Our responsibility is to audit those and gain an understanding of those that the district spends an entire year accumulating, accounting for, and protecting the resources of the district. And then we issue an opinion on those financial statements. And the opinion we issue is an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion that the district's financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial positions of the district. That's auditor language, but what that really means is as a board and as management, as you utilize the information in the financial statements, you can reasonably rely on that information that it's accurate. The second audit that we perform is an audit in accordance with the Single Audit Act. So you receive just over $115 million this past year of federal funds. And as a result of those federal resources, we're required to test compliance related to certain programs. It rotates which programs we do, and we perform an audit of those. This year, the programs that we tested were Title I, your Medicaid cluster, and your Education Stabilization Fund. Education Stabilization Fund is your ESSER and GEARS money. You're probably more familiar with it. That was funded through pandemic-related response. And we issue an opinion on compliance related to each one of those three programs. And that opinion is that the district complied in all material respects with the compliance requirements outlined in the Single Audit Act and the appropriate uses of those funds. And so there's varying compliance requirements that we test as it relates to those programs. Did you spend the funds for allowable activities and not unallowable activities? Did you fulfill proper reporting requirements? Did you have proper cash management? And again, an unmodified opinion on all those components of federal compliance. The final audit we perform is an audit in accordance with the State Compliance Audit Guide. There's a lot of state compliance requirements that you have. The Office of the Utah State Auditor issues a guide of specific state compliance requirements that they request that we look at and ensure your compliance and issue an opinion on compliance related to those compliance requirements. And once again, an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion related to the compliance guidelines in the State Compliance Audit Guide. So education terms an A grade on all three of those. Additional services we provide that aren't audit-related services, we help submit your data collection form or that single audit, that federal compliance has to be submitted to the feds. We help submit that. We help your foundation submit their Form 990. We visit your schools, provide some training while we're there and look at some finances related to individual schools. We rotate which schools we do. We do about 20 each year that we visit. And then throughout the entire process, we look at varying samples of cash disbursements, cash receipts, your capital asset processes, the inventories you take, and don't have any reportable matters related to that. Any questions? I went through that very quickly.
I'm looking at Clark, our fellow auditor.
Maybe for the benefit of the board, just very, very quickly, you would describe some of the activities that you go through to arrive at your opinion on the compliance issue, for example, with the ESSER funding and that we're spending the money the right way. What are some of the substantive testing activities that you do?
Yeah, so as it relates to compliance, whether it be ESSER or any of the federal compliance requirements, the first thing we do is evaluate the transactions that you incurred. Oftentimes those are, for Title I as an example, payroll related. So we would select a sample of the personnel charged or invoices charged to those programs, select a sample and get invoices, get the details, get the underlying support, get the reports that were submitted and reconciled by USBE, and ensure that those matched. The feds issue what's called a compliance supplement. A compliance supplement outlines the allowable uses of each one of those programs, and we ensure that those follow those program requirements. Did that address the question? I can go in more detail if you want.
I think that's the right level.
I'm sorry if I missed this. You were auditing us on our compliance with federal regulations only, or federal and state.
So there's 3 different opinions we issue. First, financial statements. Second, federal compliance related to 3 specific programs that we rotate through each year. And third, state compliance requirements specific to the state compliance requirements that the state auditor has asked us to look at. You have many state compliance requirements. You have many federal compliance requirements. We don't issue an opinion on all of those, just specific to the guidance that's provided.
And that changes yearly, so you look at different things?
It can.
Okay.
So the federal guidelines, typically from programmatic purposes, many of your programs are the same, recognizing ESSER and GEARS are not the same. But Title I, Special Ed, Child Nutrition, those compliance requirements are pretty consistent from year to year. However, the State Compliance Audit Guide, while the requirements don't change drastically necessarily from year to year, what the state auditor asks us to look at may. And additionally, within each of those, both federal and state, there's some rotating procedures or rotation that takes place. So even if the guide says, hey, here's the areas, half of those areas they say test every 3rd year. And so what we test this year may be different than what we test next year, even though they're both in the guide.
And is it called out in this report that we have in front of us which federal requirements and which state requirements we were tested on this year? Specifically?
The report, just the financial statements? No, there is a separate compliance packet. There's probably just a PDF of that. We could get a hard copy if you desire, but that outlines those.
Okay. Thank you.
So on the website, you'll see 2 documents. One will be this financial document here, and the second document will actually be the single audit programs that were reviewed.
So just to give you an idea, from a state compliance perspective, we look at budgetary compliance, fund balance levels. There's a fraud risk assessment you have to do. There's some cash management, Utah retirement systems, public treasurer's bond, internal control systems, and public education programs.
And to clarify, you said it's the state auditor that picks those 3 that you look at, even though they change every year?
As it relates to federal programs, that's dictated by some guidance from the federal government, and it's really dictated based on a risk that we determine, but there's some limitations on, there's certain things that we have to do every year. As it relates to state compliance, it's the state auditor's office that outlines that guide in which specific compliance requirements we're required to issue an opinion on.
And that's not limited to 3, that's several.
Correct. Some of those have the state auditors outline some of those. They say every 3rd year look at these, but it's not limited to 3. In fact, it can grow substantially each year and shrink substantially each year. That's issued generally in the March-May timeframe.
Any other questions?
And that's
Nicole?
just dependent on our own, our audit findings and what we think is the highest risk? Is that what those are based on, or does everybody get audited on the same thing?
As it relates to state compliance requirements, everybody has the same state compliance audit guide, and if those areas are applicable to you, then we're required to test them.
Okay.
All right, thanks for your work. Thanks for being here tonight, and go Jazz.
Go Jazz.
All right. All right, board members, we have need of an executive session for the purpose of character and competence of an employee. On this, to go into executive session, we need a motion, and then it is a roll call vote. And when you vote, you need to say yes or no and state your name. The legislative report is the info item in the 7 o'clock meeting.
I motion that we go into executive session for the purpose of character, competence, and
Of an employee.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the table to go into executive session for the purpose of character and competence of an employee. This is a roll call vote. Let's start with Clark.
Clark Nelson, yes.
Chris Wynn, yes.
Nicole McDermott, yes.
Connie Burgess, yes.
Kim Chandler, yes.
Julie Jackson, yes.
Karen Winder, yes. Motion carries unanimously. Board, we will go up to the conference room upstairs, and we are inviting Rich Nye and Todd Hubbard to be in that meeting with us.